What's the most awkward thing that's happened at a sleepover? I was camping in the backyard with some friends when I had to pee super bad. I couldn't find the zipper to the tent to get out, and I was about to burst. So I ended up trying to pee through the mesh window. I don't know why. Well, peeing through mesh doesn't really work too well, especially with terrible 9-year-old aim, and I end up laying a pretty thick layer of atomized urine all over everyone else in the tent. In the morning, it turns out one of my other friends was awake, pretending to be asleep, and saw the whole thing and told everyone it was me who peed all over everything in the tent. Dude was awake while he was getting all over him and said nothing. What the F, man? Needless to say, I was not invited to another sleepover for quite a while. Story 2. Probably about 14. This girl decided to have a big slumber party for her birthday. Well, she was stereotypically uncool, wore t-shirts with wolves on them, bragged about how far she could stick the arm of her glasses up her nose, and kind of always smelled like dogs. I was about one social rug above her. My friend and I were the only people that showed up at her big party. Her mom made us hot dogs and dinner was silent. Her dad started screaming about how her 2 gigantic German shepherd hadn't gotten enough affection today. He ended up throwing a hot dog at the girl's mother. Later on, I made a joke of the word gracias as grassy ass because I was 13. Her dad pulled me into the kitchen and screamed at me. I was shaken up and scared, so we all went to bed. In the middle of the night, my friend and I woke up with the girl sitting upright between us and shaking us awake. We tried to figure out what was going on, and she just said, we could kiss. Having no interest in such things at that age, I was thoroughly disturbed. My friend called her mom and claimed we were sick and had to be picked up immediately. It was just too much discomfort for one night. Story 3. When I was about 7 or 8, me and a few friends were sleeping in a tent in my best friend/neighbor's front yard. His dad was a bit of an alcoholic, quite similar to Randy Marsh actually. Anyways, his dad comes home from the bar, plastered, bursts into the tent and wakes us all up, saying we should all go up to the elementary school across the street. We go with him, the whole time acting like spies, avoiding all the lights, all under his drunk directions. We get to the playground and he decides he wants to challenge all of us to a foot race. So we all line up, he yells, "Go!" and we all take off. Surprisingly, he kept up with us almost all the way to the finish line before he busted his butt. Fell flat on his face on concrete. He also landed awkwardly on his arm, breaking his wrist. It was awkward at the time, but looking back on it, 20 years later, it's quite hilarious. Story 4. One time I was over at a friend's house for his 11th birthday. It was myself, the birthday boy, and 3 other guys. We all slept in our sleeping bags in the basement. At around 5 a.m., we all awake to find Jake yelling at the birthday boy Derek. The reason? Derek thought it was funny to take a piss on Jake's face while he was sleeping, and Jake freaked out. Jake walked out right after that, while the rest of us stayed up and called our parents around 7. I went home around 8. And in that time, Derek was still trying to play it off as funny. Derek lost 4 friends that night. Yeah, how's that funny? Just piss on someone's face. Jesus Christ. If these kids were a little bit older, I would imagine one of them would probably start punching him, to be honest. That's just kind of too far. Story 5. 13 or 14 years old. All night RPG session. Pen and paper with my buddies in my friend's basement. His awesome and very traditionally Chinese mom brings us course after course of food throughout the evening as I vainly try to DM an adventure where my friends are more interested in creating in-game simulations of being drunk. GURPS had a skill for that, like everything else, than in actually playing the game. The night wears on, and we finally pass out, with dawn quickly approaching. Shortly afterward, I wake up with a start. My stomach didn't like the awesome Chinese food as much as the rest of me did. Jump off the basement floor and bolt for the bathroom. Only I'm really tall and have a problem with passing out when I get up too quickly. Black out in the doorway and fall hard. Wake up a moment later with my friend standing over me. That's when it hit me. That looming feeling of dread when you realize that you had just crapped your pants in front of a room full of your peers. Is this real or am I dreaming? These terror-filled thoughts are interrupted by a renewed gurgling in my stomach. Apparently, it is all too real. I claw my way into the bathroom and slam the door shut on my startled friends. I pull my pants down and unleash a foul kind of hell in the toilet, even as crap continues to soak into my ill-fitting jeans. This happened in the 90s. But wait, there's more. Suddenly I need to vomit, because this delicious food apparently cannot leave my body fast enough. I do the only rational thing that can be done and start puking into the garbage can as I continue to add to the mountain of feces underneath me. Apparently, I had offended some vengeful deity that day because obviously the basket is wicker. So there I am, pooping everything that can be pooped as I vomit into a garbage can that is, at best, straining it. The floor covered in vomit, my pants are full of crap, and that's the day my social anxiety started. Welcome to the next decade of your life, kid. Story 6. When I was like 11, my mom made friends with this chick at her work who had a daughter the same age as me. There was a few times where her mom and my mom would hang out and bring us along, so we were kind of friends. Anyways, the girl has a birthday party, sleepover, and invites me. We didn't go to school together, so I didn't know any of the girls she had over. There was 4 other girls, so we eat pizza, swim in her pool, sleepover stuff. So later in the night, after her mom and her mom's boyfriend had gone to bed, we're all hanging out in her room just talking about weird preteen crap while listening to music. So the TV is on, but since we have music on too, the TV's on mute. I don't know who put it on or how long it had been on, but in the middle of our conversation, this girl says, "Oh my god, look at the TV." It was just some softcore cinematics pee, and the room just went silent. So this other girl asks if any of us had ever seen. Most of us are like, no. So then she asks if we know how. Again, we're all like, no, not really. So this girl grabs a pillow and starts humping it while we're all just sit there. Sean Paul's Temperature was playing in the background. Jesus Christ, that just sounds disturbing. Oh my god. I can kind of relate to this. I remember when I was a kid, I had this friend. This was probably back in 5th grade. And I crap you not, my friend just kind of pulls a her and then starts flexing it to me. It was quite disturbing. But little kids just don't know. That's the unfortunate part. You don't know, but it's just, it can be traumatizing. Story 7. I was sleeping over at my cousin's house. We stayed up and snuck out into the living room to watch Cinemax. It was after midnight, and back in those days, that was when all the Netflix came on. One came on that my cousin was really into. He started touching his, in his pajama pants, and then he let out a blood-curdling scream. Somehow, he ruptured a vein or something in his peen. We had to go wake up his mom. She looked at it and decided we had to go to the emergency room. Our whole family still makes fun of him for that until this day when we get together. Okay, there's so many questions to be asked. First of all, how does that even happen? Second of all, your mom, I'm like, if I'm bleeding out there, no one's checking, no family member is going that area, that vicinity. You hear me? Story 8. About 11 years ago, sleepover with girls and boys. All lights are out for about 10 minutes. We have all settled down and gotten silent for sleeping. Then we hear a grown male voice clearly enunciate the word "what?" Now let me be clear, this was not a child's voice. This was like hearing James Earl Jones say "what?" There was about a 10-second silence, and then one of the girls says, "Who said that?" Silence. Then one of the boys starts laughing uncontrollably. We turn the lights on, and he is laughing so hard that he's crying. Here we all are freaking out about some strange man in our room while we sleep, and he's peeing himself laughing. He finally calms down enough to tell us that it wasn't a person who asked what. He farted the word. His fart sounded exactly like the word "what." We all cracked up. To this day, everyone from that party still answers phone calls from each other with "what?" Story 9. It was 1st grade, my first sleepovers party. We were watching one of the Star Wars movies and talking Pokemon cards. We were all having a great time. Bedtime rolls around and my dad has to bend over to turn the VCR off. As he crouches down, he lets rip a fart so thunderous Thor would have cowered. Right into the face of my best friend at the time. Story 10. I was about 10, sleeping over with a group of pals, including my buddy's little brother who was around 6. We finished up a few rousing games of Donkey Kong 64 and Hydro Thunder and all went to bed. Woke up to find the little brother standing ominously above me, butt naked except for a pair of Christmas-themed tube socks on his hands and arms, and peeing into my half-open sleeping bag. No more sleepovers at Ryan's house. Story 11. Not really a sleepover. I was 23 at the time and drove to California to stay on a buddy's couch. I drank a bunch of beer after the long drive and passed out. Woke up having peed myself on his couch. It's about 5 a.m. I grab a towel and lay it on the couch, resigning myself to being the guy who peed on the couch for the duration of my stay. By some miracle, the towel absorbed most of it. Him and his roommates woke up around 9 a.m. and nobody knew a thing. Story 12. I think we were all around 15. About 6 male friends came over for your typical high school sleepover. Pizza, soda, and video games until 3 in the morning, and everyone just passes out where they lie. Except something must have been in the air that night, because almost everyone was getting sexual. It started with jokes about sword fights in the bathroom. Then a couple of them actually went into the bathroom to pee and cross the streams, or so they say. I didn't verify. Then at one point, 5 of them, 6th was passed out, basically started comparing chicken sizes, and I backed out. I had my reasons. I was closeted bi and in denial, and the last thing I wanted was to be ostracized in a class that was only 20 students. So yeah, kind of odd that the inadvertently gayest experience of my life happened in my bedroom and I backed out. Yeah, I've had weird incidences like this. I remember one time went to, we were all supposed to, it was 3 other guys. It was 4 in total if you include me. We were supposed to be in a hot tub. And they all just start getting changed, like just naked right in front of me. It's just weird. I was like, nah, I don't want to see anything. I'm very like, But some people just don't care. Story 13. I was out camping with a neighbor friend of mine when we were 14. I woke up hearing the shuffle of her sleeping bag. I asked her what she was doing, and without breaking a stride, she said that she was warming herself up. Then I turned out the lamp and found her on top of her bag, naked and M. She immediately stopped and pulled her sleeping bag up over herself, and she turned out the lamp. We sat there in silence for about 3 minutes. Then I said, "You can finish if you wanna." "No, you ruined it." We didn't speak much the rest of the trip. Story 14. When I was 12, my friend Peter had a disco-themed birthday party. No, I don't know why, at his house. The party being on a Friday, we all stayed the night. Being preteen boys with limitless cola, we ended up staying all night, and we decided to watch the sunrise on his back deck. As we're looking at the majestic, slowly lightening sky, our peaceful moment is shattered by a shrill, screaming voice. Looking to the source of the sound, we see his fat, topless, 50-plus-year-old neighbor lady yelling through her kitchen window that we're degenerate perverts. She was under the impression we were all staring at her. Once the yelling started, we couldn't really help it, and the horrible image will be forever burned into my mind. I'm 29 now. Story 25. I have a story of embarrassing sleepwalking while blackout drunk. When I was around 15, I was staying the night at one of my best friend's house. We decided to steal a bottle of whiskey from his parents' kitchen and walk down to the park down the street to drink it. It was around 10 p.m. I immediately started taking big chugs, dead sober and no tolerance. About 30 minutes later, I was blackout drunk, but do remember small tidbits. We climbed the roof of the elementary school nearby, right next to the park, and tried to break into the classrooms. Eventually, I became somewhat belligerent, and my friend got annoyed. It took him about an hour to get me to leave with him. This is where my memory fades completely. We walked back to his house, and apparently, my friend told me to just lay down on the couch in his living room. At this point, he was really fed up with how drunk I was and just wanted to go to sleep. He said I agreed and laid down on the couch as he went to his room. And this is where things get a little weird. I get up in the middle of my sleep and I walk into his older brother's room and just stared at him in his sleep. My friend had just changed rooms a week ago with his older brother, so I guess in my blackout stupor, I assumed it was still his room. He wakes up and asks me what the hell I'm doing. I say nothing and proceed to lay on the floor. His brother is weirded out, but decides to just leave me be and let me sleep on the floor, probably assuming I'm drunk. About an hour later, according to him, he awakens to me rolling around and puking all over his floor. At this point, I am entirely incoherent, so he decides to just deal with it in the morning and leave me be. About an hour or so after that, I get up and walk into his parents' room across the hall and start puking all over their floor. His parents are fuming, needless to say, but somewhat understanding. His mom gets up, cleans up the puke. I am completely blacked out and takes me to shower. She takes my clothes off except for my underwear and puts me in the shower and turns it on. This is all according to her. God knows what exactly happened and what I was saying. For all I know, my chicken was popping out of my boxers. I never felt the need to ask. Anyway, the next morning, I woke up in his basement with nothing but underwear on. That is stiff from dried puke, with virtually no memory after we decided to try and break into the school. I talked briefly about what had happened with him and his family as I grabbed my clothes and left. Most embarrassing night of my life. Story 16. This was both awkward and kind of scary. I was 8 or 9 years old. My friend was having a birthday party, and a bunch of us were sleeping over in the basement. The basement itself was pretty creepy, and we had spent much of the night telling horror stories until we eventually went to sleep. At around 2 a.m., we were awoken by one of the girls stomping up and down the stairs. She was yelling and crying. I can't remember what she was yelling specifically, but it was basically nonsense. It basically looked and sounded like she was possessed. A few of the girls started asking her to go back to sleep, and she basically just angrily screamed, "No!" and continued going up and down the stairs. Finally, she eventually stopped without a word and walked back to bed. Found out in the morning that she had been sleepwalking, and on top of it had wet the bed. She was really embarrassed, and we all felt really awkward at breakfast that morning. Story 17. My friend in high school had the house where all of our friends would play Smash Bros. Tournaments until our eyes bled, then go to sleep in his massive RV parked outside. I wasn't, and still am not, a morning person, so I'd usually be the last one out of the RV. One night, I fall asleep on the pull-out bed in my jeans and all, with just a blanket covering me. As I wake up, I'm still in the half-awake, half-asleep haze, and I feel something rustling in my nether regions. I figure it's just morning wood, and go back to sleep. Then it happens. I feel it again. Wake up for real this time, and my chicken is outside of my zipper. Band still on, blanket still covering, and I look over. My friend is laying next to me, he and I being the two only in the RV, staring directly at the ceiling. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, and prayed he just didn't pull my chicken out of my pants while I was asleep. So I packed up and headed home. Lo and behold, an hour later I get a text saying he was so sorry, he didn't know what he was thinking. Yeah man, you pulled my chicken out of my pants while I was sleeping. I'm gonna need a little space. Update. I've lost contact over the years after he went to a different college, but he's now in a happy relationship after he came out a year or two ago. The worst part of the story is until my girlfriend and I met, he was the only one, besides me, to have fondled my twig and berries. My friends were ruthless with his jokes. Story 18. When I was about 11, my new next door neighbors moved in, and the youngest son around my age invited me to a sleepover. He was nice enough fella if I recall, but when we went into his room and he was showing me around, he goes, "1 second, I forgot something." Well, when you have to pee like a MF, that 1 second feels like an eternity. I considered finding the nearest bathroom, but was just worried I'd get lost or be intruding. I know, no logic there, but I was 12, and they were the first Jewish family I'd ever met, so everything was a bit odd. Anyway, sure enough, I peed myself real good, and before Ben could make it back to his room, I bolted to the door to walk back home, of course. I'm not trying to hang out with this guy with pee over myself. On my way out, the mom asked me why I'm leaving, and my response, which I thought at the time was a pretty good one on the spot, and looking back certainly is not, I said, sometimes you just need to go home. I walked next door to my house, tossed the urine-covered shorts in the laundry basket, and went upstairs doing whatever the F I did when I was 12 for the remainder of the evening. At dinner, my parents confronted me in an odd manner, acting as if they caught me doing something. My mom asked, "So, you were wearing your red shorts this morning. You changed since then. Is there something you want to tell us?" In the first lie I can ever remember in my life, I promptly responded, "Well, I was playing with my Hot Wheels, and was moving over the house, putting them in my pocket to carry them, and I decided these pair of shorts have bigger pockets, so I put them on to carry more Hot Wheels." They called me out on that crap right away, but I'm pretty sure I played with hella Hot Wheels that night anyway. Story 19. I came out of the closet during a sleepover, was sharing a waterbed with 2 other dudes, and 3 more were sleeping on the floor. I just came right out with it, and they just kind of all reacted with, "Huh?" and talked about something else. I thought they just accepted it right there, and it wasn't a problem. It was a huge relief for me that they brushed it off without any issues too. Ended up finding out last year, I was 13 when this happened, 20 now, that it was super awkward for everyone else, and that's why they changed the subject so fast. It wasn't at all awkward for me, but for them it was. Sorry guys. Although the guy in the middle of me and another friend whispered in my ear that he was bi, and we stealth cuddled for a bit. So it doesn't matter, head cuddles I guess. Story 20. Does a Boy Scout trip count? Well, if it does, here it goes. I was in BS in an inner city area. The older kids were meanies. Well, my first weekend trip, my dad loaded me on goodies to share. I fell asleep and the older kids raided my bag and took just about everything. So it sucked, but whatever. I go home and tell my dad, and he was angry, but really composed, which was odd for my Irish longshoreman dad. So next month is my next trip, and my dad made a big batch of brownies, but told me not to eat any or share with my friends. He told me to leave them in my bag like I did last time. Sure enough, I woke up and they were gone, and 3 kids were crapping themselves like crazy. Yep, my pops put laxatives in the brownies. He showed up the same morning to the campsite with another goodie bag for me to share. Never had my bag raided again. Story 21. Mine are all things that I did. When I was in grade 1, I had a sleepover with my old best friend and her new best friend. I was jealous and felt left out the whole time. That night, I wet the pet and we never hung out again. When I was younger, I used to puke if I ate eggs, even scrambled. My friend's dad made eggs. I was trying to be polite and eat them, but I couldn't keep them down and ran to the bathroom right off the dining room to throw up his nice breakfast. Third one, and the most mortifying. I was at a friend's house and got my period. I was wearing a thong and she didn't have any tampons, just huge pads. So I tried to make it work anyway. The next day we were sitting on the computer and there were only seats for 2 of us. So I sat on one of the girls' lap. After a while I got up and realized I bled through my jeans and all over her leg. She laughed her butt off. Thankfully, instead of being disgusted, her mom had me send a towel when she drove me home. Story 22. It's my turn to shine. I've always done weird things in my sleep. I still do, but thankfully not as often. I scream, I get up and take a shower, I go in the kitchen and make a sandwich, but when I was younger, elementary age, I used to strip while I was sleeping. I would wake up and my Scooby-Doo nightgown would be underneath my pillow. It was weird. So one night, me and some 10 other girls were spending the night at my friend's house because it was her birthday. We were having fun, eating cake, watching movies, blah blah blah. We all fell asleep while watching some movie. In the morning, when we all wake up, I'm still half asleep and I get out of my sleeping bag and stand up and stretch in front of everyone, butt naked. Some 10 to 15 years later, my friends have still not let that one go. Story 24. I was on a camping trip in the far north Arctic, and there was a night where about 6 people managed to get a decent night of sleep in a room of a local's home. We all shared the room and everyone fell sound asleep because they were so exhausted from days of hiking. Except me, that is, because I don't sleep often and was wound up with a storm outside. In the middle of the night, as I'm laying there, looking out the window, I hear a really, really weird sound, like this rubbing of silk. It gets more and more intense, and for a moment, I'm having this horror story moment where there just has to be some weirdness coming to get us all. The sound turns into a slight thumping and gets more and more intense. I look around and to my shock, see what is going on. One of the shyest girls I have ever met, I mean, I'm talking an extreme level of shyness, is face down, butt up, finger effing the ever-loving crap out of herself. As far as I could tell, she was out cold and having some wonky stream. It was really awkward. I didn't want to watch, so I didn't. But it was a small room, close quarters, and there was no escaping the sound of schmuck thump, schluck thump. She finally awoke with a start, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw her look around the room, probably realizing what happened, and praying to holy baby Jesus that nobody saw. It was weird, really weird to see someone like that in an unconscious state. I could never look at her as the diminutive shy girl again.